Hello, dear Snoop Dogg. My previous neighbors and people still involved with them near me have Weathersfield police making confessions over the phone and switching names with courts. Since they were kids, they're putting fake things with courts' family members in databases. And they have a guy who looks just like Puff Daddy. I believe it was Puff Daddy at Trinity College in 2011 as one of the ones involved. They involved you too. They recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, like FBI director, former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants and their family members and their lawyer, and a whole bunch of names with spots next to his lawyer's office. And not far from the Harriet Beecher Stowe Mark Twain House, which is not far from the state capital of Connecticut. And next to it, people have roles of all kinds of identity theft, fraud, slanders. They also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, has roles with the phenomenon of corners of streets tied to them, putting fake ties and fake natures of ties to me. All natures of investigations, investigators, is recorded how they're used remotely, criminally foreign influence, and campuses of all ages and natures, including fire campuses, medical campuses. And these are people involved with the state corrections offices of Connecticut and the state judicial branch offices and intermilitary. And people calling people rats where they're complete rat holes, evidence of racketeering natures. Collusion /S that forced the principal upskirt nature. Collusion /S who won years before that. Increasingly has names involved with the spots next to news locations. Increasingly collusion /S with all natures of crime scenes, even before there are crime scenes. Covering up all natures of. Do you ever wonder how they can have that sick nature and then have the abuse? Sometimes they'll have aggression. Sometimes they'll smile about crazy things. There's behavior racketeering worse than war crimes with the people next to the news locations too. And the exceptions how exploited, like public television. These are people hiding behind their roles with Russians, Koreans, Ukraine, Korea, Italians, Irish, all these countries. And they speak of borders. See, cell nuclear, cell body, cell wall /S. So then they get desperate. And now they're saying, in other words, but all one state, suits and ties, counters to exceptions, like self-valued identity, denying that they could proceed, dishonestly denying that they can perceive or that they pretend they can't discern that and how the suburbs are designed tactically denatured, designed by a torture, extortion, slavery method to keep negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. While being a landscape theater, self-value only means to counter that or to try to overcome it. Is the self-value rules only means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures. It's the self-value criminal insidiousness natures of them. Criminally foreign influence / hyper-criminally foreign influence. I'm not even a lawyer. Nature shows us to discern that and how sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly complete other countries and their companies, all that. It was used also sickly non-distinctly by a breaching method that had roles entrenched with what our founders told us to address as torture, extortion, slavery. And you guys are calling us rats when we try to do that. And your roles with identity theft, fraud, slander. They want to play a black and white game. See the whites of eyes. In other words, I don't want to fight with you guys. You guys up here calling people rats. We'll talk about evidences trail. You guys are fake. You can't get on paper with one name in sequence. Connecticut's New Britain's Superior Court has a bunch of people with Hartford courts involved with the FBI and with federal agencies, with forensics names, with like, in other words, originally still. If they want to be forgiveness, which they do, they won't let us. But simultaneously, they don't because they'll get caught. They're already painted themselves in corners. You think that they put people in jail for 20 years to make a point? People don't even watch the news, don't even know about that on a mass scale. You ever see how many people are in those backgrounds of the people of the rap videos in New York City? There are World Trade Center attack predicate acts reported, and our policemen. But then, in other words, the investigators, they're involved with behavior racketeering worse than war crimes. You guys need to stop changing and faking what people say about predicate acts with facts. What are they doing with the Scalora family, the Morrow family, and Colol family involved with wire crimes and identity theft frauds with the people around the Keene family involved too. Record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. I begged them for a response. And no one will respond. Make sure they didn't change the fake word. I politely had a conversation with them, asked them for help. Increasingly, their neighbors are involved with body dumping spots and various natures of predicate acts in identity theft, fraud, slaying, federal evidences, crimes, roles with judges, prosecutors, mayors, their family members, with criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, wrought readings of statutes and precedents, and hiding exceptions that would show this consciously, like with people named Fienza, involved with Cromwell too, mayor, involved with Facebook too, with sexual and medical offenders of kids, with the FBI, and people with the DCF, people only the countering bodies of things, like with the borders problems, sick roles with criminal enterprises and private ones, right off, they're all hiding their life progressions at medical campuses, like Hartford Hospital has a bunch of people tied to the name Kalal and Smith involved with wire crimes and fake conversations with me at Hartford Hospital, with intercities police departments and Wethersfield police when I was a kid that weren't at all when I was an adult. And then, in other words, then we have to speak to little kids who are adults speaking about black and white, and we still don't have the predicate acts with facts addressed. We're gonna get this done. Let's get them on paper, one name and sequence, please. Play games and threaten people. In other words, let's get the interbranch on paper, one name and sequence. Like, oh, chop. Get me off the fake conversations with WFSB at the same exact time to prevent me speech offensively. I've been asking every year since before the World Trade Center attack. You're going to watch how the people from Connecticut, intercities, intra-cities, inter-campuses, intra-truck campuses, they were covering up predicate acts with facts, methods, needs, natures, roles, and with the names at interstates involved with the Washington, D.C., and with the World Trade Center in New York City, involved all kinds of interstates, collusions, and people internationally that come to Central Connecticut State. Which before I was born, these campuses, before everyone was born, before our founders were born, the suburbs are designed, tactically denatured, with slavery against black, sickly distinctly north and south, and in the north too. You guys can't debate anything legitimately though. You can't go into much conversation, but you got to go into the conversations like that. Then you want to force things to be valued that they aren't, like isms. You want to debate an ism. Get down, or is. You guys are sick. You guys can't appreciate what actually was recorded through world wars, like psychiatry roles with all these countries, right through it, where they had peace while they had war. Oh, but peace is better than war. That's a difference. There were collusion, criminal insidious natures of peace and criminal insidious natures of negatives, keeping the breaching method from being discerned. The breaching method had slavery, sickly, distinctly northern style, and you don't separate that from what witch trials are about, and you don't separate that from what came first, that breaching method against Native Americans before they even had a name. So then the plural founders behind James Madison and his plan, there are Native Americans who are proofs that agreed with them and wanted to help and use that plan to get the Constitution on a bridge. Why? How we need hyper additionally rights that are too numerous to have to list them, let alone while the internationally leveraged through ourselves homeland breaching method is entrenched and rolls with it. The counters to crime. You guys want to say? You guys know when one side of the difference between Republican and Democrat too, measured collusion, self-guided rules with the difference of black and white left out, because the difference of it is generated by that which is showing us. It generates all differences, and we could ignore its system and use differences other, but it will demonstrate with negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures like extinction. You guys turn it around and feel good about it because you have been used self-guided roles with the breaching method. Otherwise, your body was sensed, including if it was a majority of people, including if it was everyone of an entire country together. Any grouping of countries to counter that, or what it causes, which is known now through ourselves too. That's not blaming other things, others ourselves. That body is sensed through ourselves now. That's how long we've had all the identities of experts involved with criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, uses of their words, and while they're pretending other uses of their natures. Like, for example, the history experts were obligated to not leave out natural principles like black people's rights of life, but also obligated not to leave out the founding principle that our founders forged with James Madison's plan. with the founders plural behind him to enable that, capable of countering internationally monitored and entrenched conversations that were themselves individually grouped together. Those countries behind it, the companies behind it, they're already locked in to an extent incapable of fathoming being anything else but the complete hyper possession of what came from some ancient times since before modern religions were messengers were born. This is most practical and probable, but you guys can't. They have all. This is a breaching method that started fights between everyone, made criminal and ceaseless natures of peace between everyone, and watch everyone blame other things. Others self-propagated that and propagated self-cultivated roles with that. This breaching method measures and maintains. You guys are sustaining the subject treatment with sexual predators, and you're oh, it's not a sexual predator; it's a person with on the nature of debate with men and the women's sports. You guys are using it to sense for the breaching method that no one's telling about how you guys are putting predicate acts with facts and databases. How you guys are teaching American history with delusions and criminally foreign influence, collusion, /s, all kinds of drugs and medicines crimes with a whole bunch of other countries, with the people at the corrections offices and the judicial branch offices, and even medical and fire campuses. At the same time, they collude to hide live progressions with their family members being and having been used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically, delusions raw. At the same exact time, they'll avert criminal enterprise private ones. Not one of you guys are legitimate, unmarked police forms, voices for the law, voices for gangsters. You got gangster. That's your another way. Oh, because that's because there's no jobs, so we're sticking up to the man. Get down. Get me off the fake conversations with CBS, please. Get me off the fake conversation with WFSB because you guys are preventing me from speaking about what's recorded that you guys know is recorded. You're pretending other. You're saying, well, I didn't know about it. You're playing he see no evil, heal no evil. Way worse than that. That's why there are mandated laws. You don't change your fake what people say, especially with digital evidence and crimes methods, so you can pretend, well, I didn't know. In other words, you guys are offensively forcing, worse than just extortion and torture. And with roles, you have collusions, World Trade Center predicate acts before it that show that the Patriot Act and all the other acts were conceived by people that were conceived through a breaching method, conceived tactically, delusions wrought, criminally foreign influence, factory nature, quality aspects in nature. So we have to understand the principle of how of James Madison's plan, of the founders behind him. And then they went to George Washington. He agreed to help them and use that plan. But we have to be honest about the extortion of George Washington. You have to allow people to be honest about it. Oh, but I was debating because they weren't using any evidence. And I was using, this guy was an expert. He wrote a book. So they use evidence, or God wrote a book, or they use our founders, or they use our founders' words, leaving out how they declassified, how they didn't have free speech to keep the nature of debate with that entertained or that body of sense right through our own. Stop being morons, Americans. Get me off the fake conversation with the news involved with recording the World Trade Center attack predicate acts. They have state police, FBI, CIA, and multiple police departments from Connecticut involved with them with an 80 Carriage Hill Drive and a Smith family that lives here. And I've been asking you guys so I don't have to speak about these things to make it private. They're trying to pretend they want privacy dishonestly because they have the rules with the falsified police reports through time, stacking predicate acts with facts and databases individually grouped and together. The branches of government have grouped predicate acts methods too. That's but it's at the same time with overt criminal enterprise, private ones, and terrorists, a whole bunch of other countries, and the family members of the interbranch of work criminal enterprise, terrorists, people on all sides of religious locations. This has the differences racketeering worse than war crimes. Black peoples, we have the same color eyes and different color eyes at the same exact time. Prepare each mind who disbelieves. We need a who disbelieves act. Well, any fake punk could jump up and change your fake what people say. We're going to examine how they have the sexual predators next to the campuses too, and pretending they're about civil rights and things like that. Why don't they just follow mandated law? like with black pupils, what it's about. You guys are wasting our time in the campuses. You're stealing our identities. Theft, frauds roles with the people from off campuses too, for a method that keeps hyper-additional apparent in real motivations, natures, needs, interests. Even the real ones used remotely, clearly unable to screen and hide words. Record it. You guys should fear God to hide the plot. I rap a lot. Vaccines. Don't do it. Don't do it.